Welcome to Bond Park. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Marshall.
My name's Kypp Saunders. I'm the owner of Sugar Run and Babylon Sisters Wine Bar in Waterloo.
Welcome to Bond Park.
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 This is your second time on Bond Park.
It is, yeah.
And I wish we had talked about wrestling last time.
I know, right?
So let's kick
You're
this one
our
off
biggest
by-
fan. I actually think that Colin Hunter of Kayfabe News and Kypp Saunders are our two biggest unscripted fans.
Unscripted special. Yeah. Our other podcast.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, like since when? Like a kid?
I was talking about your podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Can you tell us more about how great our podcast is?
Yeah, exactly, right? But yeah, I think I started watching wrestling with my dad when I was like a small kid. And then I kind of fell out of it for a little while, and then I got back into it sort of in the late 90s. I don't watch it all the time, the current product, but I love listening to the podcasts about sort of wrestling in the 90s and 80s and all the documentaries that are coming out now. There's tons of content these days. So, and your podcast is awesome because you actually interview these people that I remember from my youth. So
Thank you so much. It's a passion project for us. We, Bond Park is something that we created that we're very proud of, and it's really allowed us to connect with the community and open doors for us and let us meet hundreds of people that we wouldn't know otherwise. And Unscripted is sort of this little secret sideshow that we love, and we have such a passion for it. It brings us so much joy.
yeah, I can imagine. I can't thinking about even how many people I've met on my podcast, but the cool thing about yours is they're all local, right? Because that's the point. So you're really meeting the community.
For Bond Park,
so,
yeah, we really are, yeah. So you can kind of walk through the town and be like, oh, I know you.
Yeah, and all the connectedness, it's crazy.
It's a small town. It really is.
You really find out that everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
I thought of you recently because I've known this woman named Jennifer for 20 years now. I never realized that she worked at Flying Dog Revolution for Gary and Sue Stewart. Mm-hmm. It just never came up.
My mom worked there too.
Yeah, and I worked at the Twist.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I remember, and we had Gary Stewart on our show, and I used to think when I was 20 years old working for Gary, I thought that life looks pretty awesome. Like he's bringing in the Tragically Hip and the Pursuit of Happiness and bands, and it just the place was going and going and going, and I used to think this looks like a pretty amazing life, even though on any given day I'd see Gary just tearing through the place or upset about something, or there wasn't a delivery, something's gone wrong, and it was actually highly stressful. And something Jennifer said to me was, she said, like Flying Dog Revolution, she goes, it's a whole science. It's like a grinding science to run a bar like that, you know what I mean? And in fact, once Gary started explaining it to us, you got to sell enough beer so you can buy this, so you can get people back next week, so you can do this, you know what I mean? And it actually sounded very dizzying to me. And
It can be.
And has that been the case with you running bars? Is
running two bars?
Running two bars, and just does it never let up?
Yeah, there's always something every day. Like, that's what I always say to my wife. It's just like, what's it going to be today? Like, there's, and to be honest with you, I've discovered that I've enjoyed more the opening of the places than the day-to-day running of it is a little, because it is stressful. The margins are really tight. It's like literally like that sometimes. Like, if I don't sell enough product this week, then we're not going to be able to afford to whatever next week, right? So, and then you add the pandemic into that situation, and it's, we're still not all the way back for people truly coming out to bars and restaurants again. So
We're still seeing the effect just as patrons. Like, people aren't
Yeah.
out the way they should be.
no, like especially weeknights.
Or that we want them to be, I guess
Right.
I should say.
We're basically all running nightclubs now where you're doing all your business on Friday and Saturday, which makes it even more stressful because if you have a shitty Friday, then that's your week, right? So bad weather can be a factor in that. There's so many things that are out of your control, and there's so many parts of the job of the running the day-to-day bar that's kind of pretty boring, to be honest with you. Like running around doing shopping for the rest. Something I'm going to do when I leave here
Right,
is
yeah.
shopping for the bars. And but that being said, it is a cool lifestyle at the end of the day. Like, many nights I don't really have anything to do except chat up the guests and have a couple drinks, and I enjoy doing that part. And I guess you got to try and remind yourself that to not focus on the stressful parts of the job and more focus on the fact that, like, shit, it's a pretty good life at the end of the day. So.
It is tricky though. Like, I mean, I love creating this podcast and producing it and editing it. And I love the films that we're making and producing and editing and filming and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of my time is emails and Zooms and accountants and receipts and lawyers and all of this kind of stuff that's just all consuming, that takes up so much of my time that I feel like the creative part of it is almost like a treat at the end of all the hard work.
No, and that's the way I've started to look at it as well. Like, by the time I get to like a Friday night, I'm basically my or any of the evenings, my work is done for the day, so I can just kind of chill out and enjoy it and talk to people, which I like. So that part's good. But I know what you mean. Like, I literally joked with my wife that I wake up and I just sort of look at my phone like, oh no, what,
Like 28 messages in the last 5 minutes.
No, how is it possible?
Yeah. What could you possibly need from me now?
Yeah. Exactly.
Since we last had you on the show, you ran for mayor.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Spoiler alert, I am not the mayor.
Yeah.
But you had a good campaign. We saw you out there. We watched you on TV. We thought you were crushing it.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, it was fun. It was a really enjoyable experience. It was really a lot of work, which I should have known, obviously. I'm not saying, like, I knew that it was going to be a lot of work, but it was even more work than I thought it was going to be. And I didn't have like a big team, so I was doing a lot of it myself while also trying to run the businesses, which is no way to execute that. So
I'm raising my hand because I haven't run for mayor, but I know about the full plate thing.
Yeah, it was just too much, but it was fun. And I, like, much like you guys get to do in your podcast, I did end up meeting a ton of people that I didn't know previously in the city. It's weird because, like, having worked at a very popular bar for a long time and now owning bars as well, you feel like you kind of know everybody, but then you realize, hey, not everybody drinks, actually.
Yeah.
So I ended up meeting a whole ton of people I'd never met before, which was cool. And
The sober crowd. We're very cool
yeah.
people. No, you might be giving me side eye because when I went to the very popular bar that you used to work at, I was not sober, but I am now.
Oh, you're sober?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. By choice, not,
Well,
just
I can't support that, Sarah, but
I will. I'm yet to come to Sugar Run. I know you invited us. You gave us a special invitation to come and see Sassy Ray at Sugar Run.
oh yeah.
December before last. But it was one of those, like, it was the Friday night before we knew we were going to get an announcement on Monday that we shouldn't go anywhere.
Right,
So we should
yeah.
have come and we didn't. But Marshall and I still need to come out and see a burlesque show and have some drinks. I'll just overpay for club soda. Just charge me like a drink amount for club
Don't worry,
soda.
we have there's so many people who don't drink now. So the mocktail thing is a real
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
real
they did a thing on
Yeah.
CTV about that. CTV
Yeah.
Kitchen did their whole show on that.
You got to have them now. And honestly, it's like basically the margins are the same for the markup. So
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Ren Navarro has been sending me of Beer Diversity. She's been sending me some mocktail ideas, and there's one that's a gin and tonic that I'm actually really excited to try
yeah.
because I love that.
That's your go-to?
Gin and tonic.
Or it was?
Oh, it was my go-to. That's right.
When I heard you were running for mayor, something kind of went through my mind a few times, and might be even a tricky thing to answer is, how do you get yourself in the mindset? How do you get yourself to the point where I'm going to run to be mayor of
That's such a good
Waterloo? Like, I
question.
mean, like, just that, what would have to start?
Like, am I doing this?
Yeah.
Am I going to tell my wife that I'm doing this?
Like, when does it first come out of your mouth?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's weird. Like, so basically what happened was someone approached me about it, or like thought it was a good idea, because it was somebody who the person who ended up being my campaign manager. And at first I was just kind of laughing, like, what are you talking about? Why me? And then the more I started thinking about it, I was like, well, I went to school for political science. I always kind of wanted to run for something. I remember my prof in first year said that, like, you know, if you care about public service at all, that at some point you just have to get off your ass and run for something. Now, I didn't really think the first thing I was going to run for was mayor. But basically my campaign manager sort of talked me into it. And then it was like, then you do have to sort of focus your mindset. I was like, this is something that I'm really doing. And I'll be honest with you, I think at the beginning of the campaign, I really didn't have the full scope of what I was getting myself into and what I was attempting to do, right? And then once the campaign started going along, it started sinking in. And then you get to this weird panic. It was like, is this a job that I want? You know? And
I ask myself that about stuff too.
Yeah. And then I realized that I did, because I thought it could make a difference. And the more I was talking to people on the campaign trail about their issues with the city, the more I was agreeing with a lot of the same the issues that these people were pointing out to me, and also thinking, okay, well, I might have a couple ideas of how we could solve some of these problems. Now, not saying that I have all the answers, and I was also trying to be honest with people that, like, look, there's only so much a mayor can accomplish. I don't know if that was the best political move for me, but I preferred the honest approach with people. And then after a while, you're just like doing it, you know, like you're just in it and you're doing it, and you're like, oh yeah, now I'm running for mayor. You start seeing your face on signs everywhere, and like it was pretty trippy, but it was a really cool experience that I'm really glad I did. And the second it was over, it was like this enormous amount of relief that it was done. So,
like, you were prepared for this part. Like, have you ever seen Dave Jaworski at Costco on a Saturday?
no.
Yeah.
Everybody else does.
Yeah. I have. Right?
You already get swarmed by people that want to talk to you when you're
For being
getting
in the
groceries.
Chronicle. Yeah. But I mean, no, I had like a 5-minute conversation with Dave Jaworski in Costco one time.
Yeah.
And there
He must
have
know
been-
it's a 4-hour trip for him.
Yeah.
Right,
2
yeah.
dozen people stopped.
That's
Say
it,
hello,
right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I hadn't even really thought that much about that, but I did notice that once I was running, there was lots of times that, it was hard to get out of I was just trying to do the liquor shopping for the bar, and it was a way longer process than I expected to be. Because at that point, especially when you're running still, like, you really need to talk to everybody, right? So there's no... When you're knocking doors as well, there's no easy way out of a conversation, right? Like you
need to give them your time and your attention.
And sometimes that means I meant to knock 100 doors tonight, and I only ended up knocking 10, right? So then that's when you need sort of a bigger team with you, I think.
Yeah. That's the part where, like, I could never do anything like that, first of all, because it sounds insurmountable, but Marshall knows I like to have the biggest sunglasses and the biggest hoodie and just breeze through this town. It's not that I'm trying to be a jerk. It's just I do need that anonymity sometimes to get through the city and do the things that I want to do, and still listen to my podcast, not my own, but still listen to podcasts or music while I'm moving through the city. Or Marshall doesn't have that luxury because you're very recognizable. I look like any Waterloo mom.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. I mean, I have that issue already just from being sort of in the public sector with, like, in the bar industry, because I've been doing it in the city for so long. A lot of people do know me or recognize me, so I was kind of used to it to a certain extent, but it definitely escalated once I started doing the mayor thing.
You know, what's interesting is I saw the anger around the discussion around 30-kilometer speed limits in some neighborhoods. And speaking of Royce Bodelli, he talked about going door to door and being confronted with questions about that. And I'm a big rule follower. I like slower speed limits as well. I was sported 30, you know what I mean? There's traffic way too fast in our Clare Hills neighborhood here, right? And yet I've received 2 speeding tickets in the last month, both for going 53 kilometers through 2 different school zones, not even at school times. One was on a Saturday.
Right.
And it was interesting how it evoked some anger in me. You know what I mean? Like, I said things to my wife like, I'm tailgated heavily every day in my little electric car because I'm clearly not going fast enough for everybody. And in fact, when we go out as a family, I'm often asked, why are you going 50 and a 60, right?
Right.
That's my comfort zone. I boot around. But there I am going 10 kilometers over in these school zones. It's funny how it's like as soon as it wasn't serving me,
Yeah.
and I've given up $100 now of my
Yeah.
family's money, it got me angry. So
Right.
there must be a lot of that when it comes to rules in like the city of Waterloo and whether it's serving someone well or not, right?
Yeah, and the problem is like just because everybody's different, everyone's in different situations, one rule may serve somebody and not the other person, right? So specifically when you're talking about that speed limit issue, I talked the large portion of people I talked to did not support it, but there was a very vocal minority of people who really supported it, right? So it was kind of one of those issues, and I know this is part of politics, I guess, that it's like almost a no-win thing to talk about, right? So every time it came up, I would just be like steeling myself. I'm like, now I gotta sort of bullshit for a while, just because like there's really no way to win. It's the same with the bike pass. Like there's a massive portion of people in town who want the bike pass. There's a massive portion of people who don't. So it's like a no-win topic. And I think with my with my fellow candidates who were running, that everybody sort of kind of would roll their eyes when those specific topics came up, because there's no way to win. Like you're going to piss off as many people as you please, right? So
Same with the campfires. If you're on
Yeah.
that city line, your neighbor
That's
can have
right.
one, you can't have one.
Yeah. And it's so funny, like you should know that getting into a political sort of sphere, but you don't really realize how prevalent that sort of can't please anybody situation is until you're actually doing it. And you're up there talking and you're realizing, no, I'm not. Like I'm pissing off just as many people as I'm pleasing right now.
I'd rather just serve them drinks and,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
make sure everybody's
Yeah.
happy and content.
Yeah, most people are happy when I give them the booze.
Can you not just go door to door with a little drink for everybody
I
and
wish.
cheers and say, please vote for me? That would have been perfect. But talking about the sort of that poli-sci sphere of what you were diving into or exploring this world of, what did you learn that you didn't know kind of going in?
A lot, actually. You end up learning a lot about sort of how the municipal politics worked, which ironically,
Slow?
yeah, very slowly. I mean, part of the reason I wanted to run as well was because I've experienced this a lot as a small business owner, right? About how the wheels move so slowly, and it's like much to the detriment of trying to get a small business open, because everything just grinds to a halt on you, and then you're just stuck waiting. There's so much hurry up and wait with that process. So I was like, well, maybe we can do something to fix that. But then once you're on the campaign trail, then you realize, okay, there's specific reasons why things move so slowly, and some of them are maybe unfixable because it's just the status of the situation, and some of it's unfixable because there's not a big desire by people to fix it, right? Like, for instance, in City Hall, like if you want to get, say, a permit for something, right, to like whether it's for your home or for your business, it sometimes takes forever. I remember when I was opening Sugar Run, there was one woman who issued building permits in the city of Kitchener, and she went on vacation, and then when she got back, she got in a car accident, and nobody did her job while she was gone. So nobody could get a building permit
That
this whole time.
seems
It's ridiculous.
ridiculous.
It's like, where else in the world would that
Yeah.
you would be able to just take off on vacation and no one does your work while you're gone? Like, so one of my big things in the campaign was like, if we can't find more money in the budget to hire more people to do these jobs, then we at least need to be cross-training them to do several jobs, right? So like if an issue like this happens, somebody else can cover for them or whatever. But then you get some blowback from city employees because they don't want extra work. And
Well, that's the thing I was going to say too. And it's not like the municipality itself is hurting for money.
no,
There's tons of fucking money.
there's lots of money.
It's
yeah.
just spent the wrong way.
It's just how they allocate it. And I talked a lot about that in the campaign. I wasn't the only one. Honestly, like the people I was running against had lots of good ideas as well. And I think Dorothy's going to do a great job. So she's a super nice lady as well. So, but I did find a lot when we were having the debates, which one thing I'll say right now is these debates weren't debates, right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
basically
time to speak.
yeah. 10-minute sound bites. So, which is too bad because there should have been some more debating, right? Like, and then I would find a lot of people just kind of skirting around the issue without ever really answering the question because you get kind of good at it. And I actually found myself slipping into it by the end of it in this Paul speak of like not really answering the question. I'm like, what am I doing? This is exactly what I didn't want to be doing when I got into this, right? So you kind of got to check yourself almost. But it is what it is.
Do you think I found that a couple things? Okay, I don't know where I'm going to start here. I found with Bond Park and with Unscripted, I have found my voice, which I struggled with before. I always sort of admired people that spoke with intent. And I don't think I do speak with intent as clearly and lucidly as most people would. But I found that I found my voice that way. It's really helped me articulate what I'm trying to say. Unlike this moment here where it's not coming out right. But did this part help you, having the industry podcast? Did that help you with this move to speaking to our neighborhoods?
I think so. I did a lot of, like I used to be on the CKMS on the radio when I was in university. So I had a little bit of experience speaking, at least publicly, although you're really just speaking into a mic then, right? So then with the podcast, now you're talking directly to people and you know that there are people listening, same as with you guys. And then also during the pandemic, I did a lot of sort of online cocktail classes and things like that. So you sort of get used to speaking in public. I've also chose to do like whiskey and wine training for people and in big group events. So I kind of got used to it from that respect, but that didn't stop me from being nervous as hell for that first debate because I'd never done that before, right? And I wasn't sure, like you don't know what questions you're going to get asked. You don't feel fully prepared ever, like, no. You know, and then by the end of it, you're like totally prepared because you just kept getting asked the same questions over and over again, right? So,
did you watch Cheers?
Yeah.
So, I've been watching, rewatching Cheers, and Cheers is a very, very special show, right?
Yeah.
You absolutely fall in love with those characters, and you care deeply about them, right? And I've worked at the Twist, which is a very different kind of bar than Cheers.
Yeah.
But have you ever been to any place that like is? I know Cheers is a fictional sitcom, but can a place like Cheers exist like that, or is the industry too kind of I don't know. I'm talking about the kind of warmth that can happen in a bar like that, and a sense of community in a bar with real regulars, and just the. Again, you may be thinking, well, no, that's a TV show, right? That's been written. But have you ever seen anything that is possible like looking like Cheers in real life?
You know, like there's certainly local bars that have like a very dedicated group of regulars that are going to come every day. These are the people that pay your electricity bills, right? Like Ethel's is very much that type of place in this city.
Every decade it kind of turns over, but it's the same sort of idea of dudes around the bar there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the lunch crowd and dinner crowd.
Now, the problem I find, though, is like if we're being honest about the situation, is that the regulars are there because that's what they do every day. They come in for their drinks and they're there to talk to each other and they're there to talk to the people working. A lot of them tend to be lonelier guys who just maybe for whatever reason either want to get out of their house or don't have a lot going on at their house, so they want that social interaction. The problem is, if you're working there, then you're being paid to be there, right? So you're not you haven't chosen to come and hang out with this group of dudes, right? So like sometimes and this is where getting back to your Cheers question is like, yes, there's lots of regulars that you like and enjoy seeing, but even the ones that you like, when you see them every single day, it starts to wear, right? Like it's just like after a while, you're just like, don't you guys have anything else to do today? Like, you know, and you can't help it. And I found that when that started to happen to me, and unfortunately a couple of times it started to happen, I realized it a little too late, is that's when it's time to go find a new job, right? Yeah. Because it's their spot. It's not yours. Like you just work there, right? Like it's their home. Away from home, it's where they get to come and chat and hang out with the guys that they've met at the bar mostly, right? So if it's me who's starting to get a negative attitude about them, then it's time for me to go, not for them to go, right?
Very grown up.
It takes a while.
We're all learning.
It's odd to me when I see all the men together. I don't particularly enjoy male company. Okay. Like I kind of, so a guy asked me if I want to go meet up for a beer. I really don't.
Do you hear that, everybody?
Yeah. I just
stop asking him.
I just don't.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to drag him out to special events.
Right.
Yeah. But clearly there's a population of men out there who enjoy each other's company and want to sit at a bar.
You're not one of them.
No.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I'm like a sit at the bar type of guy. Like if I go to which is always like when I'm building my spots, the first thing I think about is like, how's the bar going to look? Where's the bar going to be situated? And then I build out from there. Like that's just my focus first and foremost.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, but I mean like unless you're like if you're doing more of a restaurant setup, then you want to think about the dining room, right? But I tend to build bars, not restaurants, so I don't know shit about cooking. So,
but then you've outsourced the cooking for when you need it, and it's genius.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's been one of the best ideas that I came up with as far as running my places. Is just like, it's literally as simple as that thing you hear all the time is stick to what you know,
Yep.
right? So like, because I don't feel comfortable with like how the kitchen runs and like what the margins are and what's an appropriate amount of waste and like what's an appropriate markup, then and maybe it's my problem is letting go, but like, because I don't know that stuff, I have a really hard time entrusting somebody else to do it for me, right? So if I'm just outsourcing it, so it's basically our situation with Little Mushroom right now, for instance, at my 2 bars, is that they run their own business within my spot, right? So that's all up to them. They can set their margins however they want. They can deal with their waste. They can deal with their employees, right? So it's such a relief for me because I don't have to worry about something that I'm entrusting in somebody else that I don't know about.
I think it's where a lot of people fail because they take on that bigger project with a giant menu and things go awry, right?
Something I realized when I was watching Cheers again was how there's no food in Cheers. Like there's
peanuts. There's peanuts.
Nuts.
Yeah, you can go upstairs to a seafood restaurant and have a nice dinner, right? And in fact, Cheers kind of works as a lounge in a sense for people waiting to go upstairs.
Right, yeah.
But there's actually no food other than, like Sarah said, peanuts that Norm snacks on, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist, though, does it? Like, aren't bars required to have something?
You are required to have food, but but basically the requirements are very minimal, right? Like, I don't know if you remember, like Abstract, Club Abstract back in the day, they had like 3 frozen dinners in the back that so they could meet the quote unquote food requirements, right? Yeah. But nobody ever ordered it, or it fills. Like they had bags of chips, right? And honestly, like, there's been times at Sugar Run, because it's such a cocktail focused heavy spot, where I've even thought about just scrapping the whole idea and just going to like we got some chips behind the bar if you want them, you know what I mean? But the problem is then, like, you do have to keep a certain level of responsibility of making sure people aren't getting too wasted. And if, like, one of the tricks that they teach you in Smart Food is to feed them, right? Soak up some of the alcohol. So if
some of it.
Yeah.
A meal does not erase a night of drinking.
No, I wish.
One thing I was going to mention, just to call back to when you were talking about building out the bar, is I haven't been to Sugar Run yet, but I've seen photos of the bar area. It's freaking gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
So well done. What was the
very
planning process for that?
So my business partner Justin and I, we did a lot of traveling around the U.S. U.S. really does bars well, and we knew we had a few ideas. Like my first bar, White Rabbit, I feel like we kind of just stuffed our idea into the first space that was available, which I learned is like not the way to do it. So you kind of got to find the location and then figure out which idea works best for the location. So we had a bunch of different ideas, and then when we found the location for Sugar Run, it was perfect for the speakeasy idea because it was in the back alley. You had to go down to the basement. So we started looking around other bars in the U.S., and I had done some traveling in Europe previously, and I always had these ideas of like different bar setups that I liked, right? So like in all kind of art forms, you borrow, right? So you borrow your ideas. It's not stealing.
We were just talking about that today.
Yeah. So it's like you take a little bit from every different idea that you like and put it together into something that you like. So we were very into like the sort of marble bar top, and the big arches behind the bar were a big deal to us for a bunch of the different places that we went with the looks that we liked. So yeah, you just kind of piece it together that way, and then what happens is you get it all set in your mind about how you want it, and then immediately it all starts falling apart because of logistics in your space, or mostly costs, right? Like it's like, oh, but we wanted this like super thick marble bar top, and then we're like, okay, but then we won't have furniture. Like,
Do you have TV screens in your bars?
No, and it's funny because then sometimes I want to watch a game and I can't. But
so I hate TV screens in bars.
Okay, good.
Even though you are a TV junkie.
I watch wrestling every day.
But you can watch TV at home, right? Like
exactly. It's here's where I've seen it work. I think terribly. Right. I've sat in bars in Toronto by myself, waiting for my family to come out of a concert, and I can't not see the TV. It's right there. There's a place in town I've been to with Sarah twice now, And I thought we were going to sit somewhere where I can't see the TV, but it's actually being reflected in the glass now as I'm looking outside, right? Mother's Pizza returned for a short period of time.
That was a lot of screens.
Yes, they would put 2 flat screens side by side, almost touching. One with super high definition, a football game on it, beside a Laurel and Hardy or Charlie Chaplin movie. That makes no sense.
No, it's crazy.
He's getting angry.
Yeah, and I just like
think he wants a bylaw.
these are highly invasive in these spaces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I always think like now there's a place for like TVs in bars, which is sports bars.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So if you want to go for the experience of going to watch a sporting event with a bunch of other people,
Of course.
that's why those places exist. I love sports bars. They're great. When I'm talking about building my spots as like lounges or like they're supposed to be, the original point of the bar was a gathering place for people to enjoy conversation, right? And I do think that the proliferation of TVs and now cell phones in these situations has like sort of taken away from a lot of that and put in a situation where everybody's just staring at something rather than conversing, which is the whole point of the bar in the first place, right? So I agree with you. Yeah. So like neither of mine have screens, and like I'm not saying I won't build a spot in the future that would have a TV,
but it doesn't work for those spaces.
It does.
They're
like,
beautiful.
You got to figure. Yeah, like you want people to come so that they enjoy a social interaction with either the people working, the other people sitting at the bar, or the people you came with, right? Like that's the point of going out to a bar. Otherwise, why not just sit at home and have someone over and watch TV, right? Like, so I agree with you.
Do you understand how bars work in Toronto? I'll give you an example. A few summers ago, I had to kill many, many, many hours in Toronto waiting for my family to go to a concert.
Okay.
Had to kill.
Well, it's like 6 o'clock at night, and they'd get out at like 11 or something, right? And I decided I was going to stay on whatever that street is by the Air Canada Center. And what's the ACC?
Scotia?
Like Front Street? Or,
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Bar after bar after bar.
Yeah,
lots of sports bars, different kind of bars. And I was going to sit in these bars, right?
Yeah.
And right off the bat, I had no idea that a beer could cost those kind of prices and that food could cost these kind of prices.
Yeah.
And I ended up spending almost as much money as I would have if I bought a concert ticket.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't believe that works. Like, I can't believe.
Well, people are sort of captive. They're in this space and they need to grab something before their show or afterwards or whatever, or wait like you do. And
is it as simple as that? Is that what it is? It's like you have nowhere else to go anyways. You got to be here. So
I think that's part of it for sure. And like basically, just like anything else in life, everything kind of, I don't know, like how to describe this properly, but like everything kind of ends up resting to a center. Whereas like, so for instance, in a situation like you're talking about, Marshall, on Front Street there, that's like all these bars are there. They're all around going to settle around the same pricing, right? Because if you make it way cheaper than everybody else, then you're probably not making your overhead. And if you make it way more expensive than everybody else, then people are going to go to the cheaper spots. So everybody kind of settles around the same pricing. And they do have you trapped there, like especially if you're going to a concert or a sporting event in that region. Like that's pretty much, those are the places you're going to go before and after, right? The other issue is commercial rent has gotten so out of control, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. I sympathize, because I'm like, sometimes people will come to my places and they'll be like, wow, this much for that or whatever, and I get it, but what you don't see underlying it all is like what I'm paying for rent to be on King Street in Uptown Waterloo, and how much my insurance costs, and like labor costs. Like it all goes into what you pay at the end of the day, right? So like basically it's not an easy way to make money, this industry. So none of us are really out there gouging people, you know what I mean? We're there literally charging what we have to charge so we can make a modicum of profit, right? And keep the doors open. Like I think people have this misnomer that these bar owners are all greedy and we're trying to screw the guests who are coming in by pricing everything out of control. Well, you just got to think, well, okay, what are they paying for rent? What is their insurance? Like these are the things that go into the pricing at the end of the day for the most part. But I do feel like, it kind of settles around the average price in a certain area. And certainly in Toronto, it's gotten crazy. But I also think like in that situation, if you go into the ACC, think about what you're paying for a drink in there, it's almost like it's this mentality where you kind of get used to the pricing of that area, right? Where it's like, wow, I just paid $15 for a beer at the ACC.
Or crap beer.
Yeah, $13 doesn't seem so bad at the Loose Moose. You know what I mean?
Are there businesses in town that really stand out as an anomaly? I think about the one that really comes to mind that just recently closed is Sonny's Burgers, right? Sonny's
was perfect.
was perfect, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't feel the need to get new signage.
Right.
They didn't feel the need to pave the parking lot, right?
No.
They didn't feel the need to update the menu, really.
No.
If it ain't broke.
Yeah, it's sometimes that works. Eh?
Yeah. It's like, I think the key is like being like an establishment place. And it was sad when Sonny's closed, but it's like, and that Ethel's is a place like that too. It's been around so long. It's like a part of the city's fabric. But the key is you got to get to that point as your business,
Yeah.
right? So when you're opening your business, you're just trying to make, basically, you got to go into like opening a bar or restaurant thinking you have a 5-year shelf life. And then, so my philosophy is always in about year 3 of any spot, I start thinking about what's the next spot going to be in case this spot doesn't make it past the 5 years. Now, if you're lucky, and hopefully you always hope that they do, like everyone's goal is to become Ethel's, right? Or Sonny's, like to be this established place that's there forever and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Where you plan your arrival time to like be like, can we get a table to get some food?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what we all want.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is it's such a hard business to make it in that you need to at least be planning for like a 5-year turnover of what you're doing. And you're not going to get to that establishment spot if you have to close your doors because you didn't charge enough for your drinks, right? So
Yeah. So the last time I saw you, I was at you hosted at Babylon Sisters. So Babylon Sisters is gorgeous.
Oh, thank
it's
you.
so beautiful in there. The space is perfect. So you had hosted this group had rented the back room for that Web3 event that I went to where I met Hillary Abel and Janelle.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
that's where I saw you. You were
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm like, hey, back here with the nerds. Now there was no TV screens back there, right?
No.
This is what we're talking about. It's a perfect space. Everyone had light drinks. There were some snacks, all good to go. But in that tiny space, there's this packed room full of women, all with our phones out, exchanging information because we're talking high level tech Web3 nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
And from that event, we ended up doing our 150th episode, which was the Waterloo, Web3 in Waterloo, where we had met all of these wonderful women. But, like, had that happened at a loud sports bar with the TVs or, I don't want to knock anyone, but some of these places you can't even hear each other talk. I mean, especially in my age, sometimes the muffled sounds of a bar, I find it hard to decipher what the people right in front of me are saying. I'm at that age. But it was the perfect setting for something like that, right?
Yeah.
And we really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's good. And I know what you mean because I also for years of DJing, like my hearing is shot and it's
and I'm still listening to loud music as though it's not going to get worse.
right. I know. And for me, I haven't reached that level of getting over my own vanity that I can get the hearing aids that I desperately need. So it's the ambient noise that really is an issue
Totally
for me.
fucks with me.
Yeah, I can't hear people directly in front of me if there's too much ambient noise going on. So it's a weird thing that you struggle with in all of how you set up your bars too, because I will still have people come into my places and say, oh, the music's too loud or it's too dark. And I get that, but it's like then at some point maybe it's just like not your type of place.
It's not for you.
Yeah, right. You know, like, but it is kind of a struggle to figure out how to keep the noise, at what level to keep the noise of the music, because if the music's too loud, then people have to talk louder, and then that's when we get into the situation that you're referring to. Or if you go to a place that puts the volumes on the TV, those are the ones drive me nuts. I never really understood that, like how it increases your level of enjoyment to watching a sporting event to hear the dummies talk about it.
Oh, that part drives commentators drive me mental.
yeah.
I can't listen to that stuff. But I'd love that you said that it's such a grown-up notion that not everybody gets. Like if you come in there, like say you come into Sugar Run and it's dark and it's loud because there's a show going on, it's not for you.
That's right.
It's not that
Yeah.
it's a problem.
No.
You don't have to go back.
I know. I always
You don't
laugh
have to complain.
at these people who complain. It's like, what's perfect for the exact setup that you want for lighting and music is your living room.
Why don't you go there?
And you can also get drinks there.
Yeah. Why don't you get the to-go drinks and off you go?
Yeah, I had a woman like when Babylon sort of first opened, I was sitting at the bar and this woman came up to me as she was leaving and she was like, are you the owner? And I said, yes. And she's like, well, I just want to tell you, we really enjoyed ourselves, but your music fucking sucks. I was like, well, I don't know if that's the way you needed to say it, but
Right, but also like music is so subjective.
I know,
like,
exactly, right?
Like that's the complaint?
Yeah.
Like were you playing like heavy thrash metal? Like
no,
what was
it's just like we just play kind of like a 90s R&B vibe in
Yeah.
there, and it's like very subtle, I think, but it's like yeah.
everybody's got an opinion.
Oh man, yeah. It makes me laugh. Like, and you're welcome to your opinion, but maybe express it in a more polite manner than that. Like, say, hey, the music's not really for me. Okay, I get it. Like,
Yeah, but also why? That's not even something worth sharing.
I know.
It's not. If you're being nice, but it's not worth sharing.
No, yeah, you're right.
Did you see some parallels between running for mayor and also the way you get a bar up and off the ground? I think about how, you tell people will tell you they support you, they'll be there for you, but in the case of voting, then you have to show up and vote,
Yes.
right? I imagine as a candidate, you don't really have any great sense of, am I going to get a lot of votes? Like, you just don't know, but it must feel a bit like also opening a bar in the sense that, here we go, I'm going to roll these dice
Hope
and
they show up.
hope people show up, right?
You know what? I've never thought about that before, but that's exactly right.
Or
Like, yeah.
launching a podcast. Hope people listen.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's true. You really don't have any idea till you open your. And it's funny. We always joke in the bar business as well. It's like you can't count on your friends. Like all your friends are going to say they're going to come out and support a certain thing, whether it was me running for mayor or opening a bar or listening to your podcast, and they mean it. Like they have good intentions, but we're all busy and things are happening and going on. And if you're opening a bar or a restaurant and hoping that you're going to survive on the strength of the sales from your friends, it's going to be a short ride. So, but yeah, I never thought about it that way, Marshall, but it's totally true. It's like you like trying to figure out a way to build up support, right? And then when you get to the point, it's like, okay, like I'm going to open the doors now, but is anyone going to show up? You always have those, every time I do it, I have that nervous feeling on opening night, right? Where it's like, is anyone going to like it? And when they show up, are they going to like it enough to come back, right? It is a nerve-wracking feeling. Yeah, and the other thing that's hard now is with the way you, like back in the day when you opened a bar, you just kind of maybe hope to get a newspaper article, maybe get a radio spot, put some posters up around town, like this place is coming, whatever. Now everything is social media, right? But the irony of that is sort of it's catch-22 where, okay, I'm opening a new place, so I need to advertise it over social media, but because I'm a new place, I don't really have any followers. So it's like, how do you get the word out?
Yeah.
And I know you can do all the hashtagging thing, but it's like at the end of the day,
Oh, it's all about paid ads.
Yeah.
Like you have, there's no way not to, like it's pixels and paid ads and funnels and
right.
there's no way. Sorry, you were about to culminate with at the end of the day what?
No. I think that's exactly what what I was going to say is like, you have to figure out the algorithm to get it out there, right? But yeah.
I realized, having written for the Waterloo Chronicle for all these years, the power of an article just written for the sake of just promoting a new business, you know what I mean? It's incredible. It made me feel so good a while back when there's still a fairly new candy shop in town.
Sweet Life.
Yes,
I like that place.
Right?
I'm not a big candy fan, but I will get a few things from there.
And I wrote about how they've got Tahiti Treat Pop in there, which is my favorite pop growing up. And next time I saw them, they said, we're sold out of Tahiti Treat.
Oh, really?
Let me know if they ever have Goombye Punch from Bahamas. That's my favorite.
Okay.
That's good to know that still works, right? Like
Yeah.
because I know I always figure like I never pick up a physical newspaper anymore. Like I'll read the news on my phone or whatever, but it's good to know that like people are still getting newspapers and reading and like reading reviews of new spots and then checking them out. Andrew Coppolino's always been really supportive of my spots, and I'm a big fan of his for what he does in the community as well, because he's literally like he's changed the role of being like a critic, like a restaurant critic, to be just like straight a restaurant supporter.
Yes,
like,
yeah, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, yeah, and like if he went to your spot and didn't like it, he just wouldn't write about it,
Yeah.
which I think is great, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's the way.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
need to like I once read a review that talked about a gluten-free product being dry, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works,
They're
right?
not. They're not, because I have celiac, so I can't eat anything wheat. But like, they're not making it so it's perfect. They're making something kind of similar so that we can have the enjoyment of that thing we used to like.
Right.
Yeah. So saying it's dry is just hurting the business. We know it's dry.
Yeah.
We're well aware,
Well, and I think the other thing too is like so much of this is subjective, right? Like, and I don't know, maybe there is still a place for restaurant critique, but like, I at least prefer someone who is qualified to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it comes by, maybe you write for the Record or the Chronicle or whatever, and you are a restaurant bar critic. Okay, at least you have an accredited. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Maybe you can cut that out. But
Like you're a real foodie.
As opposed to like the millions of just online critics now. This is what drives me nuts. I had to stop reading Google reviews and like it's crazy because like we have good ratings, so I'm like on both of my bars, but the shitty comments will drive you nuts.
Yeah.
Like, and what I don't understand is it's become this thing now where like before everyone was a critic because they could just tap a few letters into their phone. You had to like. If you weren't pleased with your experience at a bar or restaurant, you had to express it to the human being who was in front of you.
And see their reaction.
Right.
You had to work up the nerve and have the balls to say, I don't like your music in your beautiful bar. Thanks, bye. Like,
or just like my food was cold. Can you do something about it? And then the thing is, like, if I'm there in the present moment, I can maybe fix the issue.
Yes.
But now it's become someone's like, oh, my food was cold. They don't say anything while they're there and then go home and write a shitty review saying, oh, the food was cold at Babylon Sisters or whatever. It's not, but
it's an example, people.
Yeah.
I've seen in the newspaper where sometimes you can tell like it's an intern or a fairly new writer writing a restaurant review, and they make mention that there was a dirty mop in a bucket in the lobby, and when they got their leftovers, they didn't like the styrofoam container. I thought, well, that's now in the newspaper.
Yep.
That's there
Forever.
It's like, that's pretty reckless, and irresponsible,
Yeah.
Well, and like going back to what you were saying earlier, Marshall, like people do read these and choose whether they're going to go to the spots based on these reviews. And
I don't, because it's usually some chump writing them.
Well, I'm glad because
No offense, everyone who
it's
writes
like
them.
the Google reviews. Like honestly, if I could say one thing to anyone listening is like, do not base your whether you go to a place based on a bunch of because who made these people experts on whether your spot is good or not?
At the
right?
very least, source out like an actual foodie person critic like
an
Andrew,
accredited reviewer.
Person. Yeah.
That's listen to them. That like and if like someone with that kind of gravitas comes into my place and doesn't like it and writes a shitty review about it, I'm willing to accept that. I might not agree with them, but I can at least accept that's somebody who knows what they're talking about and maybe it'll help me improve. But if it's just somebody who goes in and has a bad experience for whatever reason, doesn't say anything about it to anybody who might be able to help them, and then go home and write something shitty
from
about
your
it.
living room where you should have stayed in the beginning.
Exactly. That's the stuff. That's okay. Rant over, but that's
Sarah is so right about something I haven't had a chance to tell her yet.
It's usually the case, Marshall. There's no need to tell me.
I'm a huge horror fan. I've always loved the Halloween movies, this latest trilogy with Jamie Lee Curtis again. I loved the first one, Halloween. The second one, Halloween Kills. And Halloween Ends just came out on Blu-ray, DVD this week. And I had been reading reviews leading up to it saying, they've just ruined it. They ruined it. This is what a sad, horrible way to end an amazing series that was coming along. And I absolutely loved it.
So there you go.
It has one of the best openings of any horror movie I've ever seen.
Before you saw it in that time in between, you were a little sad about the review.
Yeah. And Sarah was like, why are you reading those?
Fuck it. You knew you wanted to watch that. You knew you were going to enjoy it no matter what they presented you with because it's part of a history of stuff that you want to continue consuming.
Yep.
And reading that just put a dent in it for you.
I know. I've stopped reading reviews before I go and consume something now because I'd rather go into it with my own fresh mind, like whether it's a movie or a restaurant or a new record. Like I'd rather experience it.
I'm 46 years old. I can choose if I like this
That's
or
right.
not. I don't need to read your shitty Google review about it.
That's
and
right.
if this helps any Google reviewers out there who like don't believe in 5 stars, I will go on places and give them all of the accolades and 5 stars. So I'm just fucking up the system just as bad as you are, even if I didn't have a good experience. I am giving them a positive review.
That's good. I mean, because you need it. Because like the other thing about that is that 90% of the time, if you have an awesome experience, you don't write anything about it, right? Like it's generally people only comment or review if they had a bad time. So it really drives down your ratings all the time. And then people look at your rating and it's like, oh, they don't like. I'm lucky. I think both of my places are in the high 4 stars ratings, which is
pretty good.
Amazing. But like if let's say you had a 2 or 3 star rating, that's not even your fault, really, you know, like, and then people just dismiss you. Well, that's like taking business away from and like food out of your kids' mouths, you know, like just because somebody had a negative experience that, again, they could have probably addressed when they were in the building.
Yeah. Let's go back to podcasting because it's all I ever want to talk about.
Okay.
Podcasting and films all the time. So the industry, you guys are crushing it. I know that I was so
thank you.
excited when you went to, you're welcome. So excited when you hit 100. I think I messaged you.
Yes,
I was like,
yeah.
you did it. Welcome to the club. It's
No.
so fun to be on this side of 100.
It was a crazy experience. We never thought we'd make it that far.
Yeah.
Like when you start these things, you have no clue.
no clue.
And you don't know if you're going to want to do 100 episodes, right?
And then it becomes like it's almost like we're creating this sort of oral history of our region. That's what our show is. But more selfishly, Marshall and I get a lot out of recording this show. Look, we're sitting here, we're having this fun time with you. We're shooting the shit about all kinds of things related to our region. And I'm sure that you're feeling the same thing about the industry.
Yes.
Right? You're at 141, I think. And you're doing local people. You're doing you're kind of going all over the place. Right?
Yeah, it's been cool. Like I really enjoy the local ones because it's generally people I know or have worked with or whatever. And so like they'll come over and do an in-person thing, much like we're doing here. And we have a couple drinks and like just talk, right? But then like we've met so many cool people from all over the world. And like lately we've had a couple people, I don't know if you guys have watched that Netflix show Drink Masters.
Haven't.
It's kind of like America's Top Chef for craft cocktail.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's it's the only reality show I've ever watched all the way through.
Nice.
Because I'm interested in the topic. We had a couple people who are on that show on now, and
Nice.
we've gotten some really cool guests, basically it started with just like a way from me and Dan to get together and have a couple of drinks, and then we always laugh. It's like basically we record the show and then we go down to his basement and watch 90s wrestling for a while and watch old pay-per-views and it's just like a way to stay in touch every week. But now I feel like I have this whole new family of people I know all over the world. So like if I go to the US or Europe or whatever, I can go to these bars and visit these people. I went down to Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans and did a whole episode from there. It was super cool. So there were people I had already interviewed who were there who I felt like old friends at that point, and then meeting new people as well. So yeah, it's been awesome for that. Really enjoyed it.
That part of it, like this show, like Bond Park, I think I'm repeating myself. We said it about 3 times, but we're all feeling it, right? That part of it where you're just meeting new people and spending this time focused in on what they do and who they are. Like here we are making eye contact across the table, talking about this city that we love, talking about these projects that we love. And it builds that sort of friendship where I could reach out to you at any point and say, hey, Kypp, we're thinking about this. Hey, Kypp, can we come to your place? And, we wouldn't have that otherwise.
That's right, yeah. It must be awesome for you guys. Like I said, mine's kind of split up, so I don't get to see a lot of the people I interview are not local. So, but for you guys, it's like you got to know almost everybody in town now.
175 tomorrow? Yeah. I was like,
Wow.
where are we at?
Well, congratulations, guys. It's an awesome show.
Thank
I
you.
do want to say, I know you have another question for me, Marshall, but like before we wrap it up, that I am a huge fan of both of your podcasts.
Thanks.
I love Unscripted Spectacles so much.
Thank
and
you.
just the people you've gotten on the show are amazing. So excellent job for both.
What's a huge
Thank you.
victory of that is, as you know, when you're young and you're a wrestling fan, there's a lot of people who roll their eyes at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It started when I was a kid.
It's a secret club,
Yeah.
but with millions of people in
my
it.
father walking in the room and saying, "Oh, we're watching that phony baloney stuff again."
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a secret club, like Sarah says. There's some people hide it. You know what I mean?
I used to.
Yeah, and there's people trying to watch a pay-per-view at a bar and having some jerk, comment on it. And those guests of ours on Unscripted Spectacle, these are deep thinking people.
Oh, yeah.
And we have beautiful, amazing conversations with them.
Yeah, I know we were talking about this before we started recording, but I really do enjoy your style of it as well. So it's like you're not asking them the same questions they get all over and over and over again, and you're not asking like, "Oh, at Royal Rumble 1993, remember when you did such and such?" It's like, no, you're having a conversation with them as a human being, as opposed to having a conversation with them as a wrestling writer or wrestler or wife of wrestler or whatever, right?
And when we turn on that Zoom, I have no idea who these people are.
Right. I think that's what makes it work is the fact that you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Just like, I see you're wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like,
no, but I think that's it was a really brilliant idea you guys came up with.
Thanks.
Because I think that's what brings the realism to the show and why I like it and why it's different. Because I listen to it like far too many wrestling podcasts, to be honest with you, like because I'm always listening to podcasts, but most of them follow the same format now. And I think it's because most of them are produced by the same guy.
Yeah.
But they
are,
it's basically, you know, such and such pay-per-view. Let's discuss the road up to the pay-per-view. Let's discuss the pay-per-view, which is great. I still love those, but yours is wholly unique, and that's hard to do in a space that there's so many of them now. So congratulations.
Thanks, Kypp.
Come out there that are very relatable. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to
Nope.
appreciate
Right.
a story
Nope.
of imagining a van being pushed across the ice of a lake.
Yeah.
Was that has that one been released yet?
No,
no.
full
that's
of
good.
wrestlers and little people, right? Like,
Do we burn this joke here? It's not going to be the same audience.
no.
We don't do it.
Oh, I see.
They're trying to test if the ice. This is one person that we interviewed. They're talking about this road trip to a show. They're trying to test the ice. They're wondering if the van can cross the lake.
One of the tires has already gone in a bit.
So it's a van full of, one of the tires is already in, a van full of wrestlers and little people going
Right.
to a show, and they decide, well, let's ask so and so little person to go jump on the ice to see if it'll hold the van.
As if that's the indicator of whether that will hold the van or not.
That's amazing.
Okay. So that one's coming up. There's a little teaser for Unscripted.
Yeah, and really a beautiful, deep conversation with Madman Pondo.
That
you know
one's
what I
coming
mean?
up too, where
About
we talk about mental health.
trying to get through Christmas when you're all by yourself. You need
Right.
to get out of your home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I want to share with you is when I think about the first thing I think of when I think about running bars is I think of the stress. You know what I mean? And I think of how precarious it all seems and so many variables that you're juggling, right? But this past Sunday, I was at a mall with my family, and I took a moment and I stood on a piece of carpet of a store that used to be a different store. And I was able to say to my kids, Dad has spent countless hours, years actually, on this piece of carpet. I didn't hate the job. It was a retail job. But boy, did I feel trapped on this big rectangular piece of carpet. And I was saying how I often think about people who must feel trapped in the space they're working in because of the nature of their work, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the feeling that came over me when I would show up. It could have been like a 3-hour shift, 6 till 9, and stepping on that carpet and knowing this is going to be a slow night and I'm going to be here for the next 3 hours, right? Feeling pretty unfulfilled, and conversation won't be great, right? And I'm so glad that I'm not still on that strip of carpet. And I always think in the entrepreneurial life, regardless of all the stress that comes with it, you must feel a great sense of gratitude that you're not standing in somebody else's space.
Yeah.
From this hour to this hour, in some cases killing time, you know what I mean? And not feeling fully invested in it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I always talk to people who are thinking about maybe doing this, when they ask me for advice, or just like people at a crossroads late in their career in the service industry where you feel like I can't just be doing this physically anymore. And but now I've been doing it for 30 years. Like, what do I do?
What do I do now?
Yeah. So, and I always say it's a stressful gig, but there's nothing like that pride of ownership when it's like, and then when people tell you that they like what you did, it's like, there's no feeling like that, and I try and remind myself to be grateful for that at all times. And that's what helps you get over the stress of it, right? Like there's way worse gigs, and I'm proud of what I've done. So, yeah.
Nice.
That's the ending. Okay. We did it.
Thanks, guys. It's
Thank
always
you.
super fun talking to you.
I want to ask
too.
you something off the record
Yeah.
because I don't
Wait, do
understand
I hit stop?
Yeah.
All right, fine.
I don't.
Bond Park is made possible with the support of the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, the Kitchener Public Library, our local sponsors, and you, our loyal listeners.
We make this show in Sarah's kitchen. If you like it, please rate and subscribe.
That helps us get the word out to more listeners.
The Bond Park theme song is by Alan Lung. Sarah and I are super excited for season 4 and all the amazing shows we're going to bring you.
We're also really excited about our secret side podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. And it's not actually about wrestling.
No, it isn't. It's about a lot of things.
Mostly life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there's tons and tons of laughter.
We're incredibly proud of it. So please check it out on all your streaming platforms. An unscripted, I can't say it. Can you say it?
An unscripted spectacle, wrestling with wrestling. Meow, 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 meow.